As a roller coaster enthusiast, I've always said that flying coasters are some of my guilty pleasure ride experiences. Something about flying in a prone position high off the ground with no track beneath you is something that can't be recreated. Throughout my travels, I've been fortunate enough to ride each of these style of coasters in North America, and I've seen which manufacturers do them well, which ones do them wrong, and I've been able to compare layouts in my head. So in today's video, I'll be using my own experiences to rank all 8 flying coasters on the continent. Well, technically there's 10 in total, but some are clones of other rides at other parks that literally do nothing different, so I just decided to lump them together. Do take note that I can't wait to update this list once I get out to Europe and Asia, because there are some really cool flying coasters overseas, like Fly at Phantasialand in Germany, Flying Dinosaur at Universal Studios Japan, and Starry Sky Ripper at Joyland in China. With that being said, let's talk about the North American flying coasters ranked from worst to best. Starting things off, and this really shouldn't be much of a surprise to anyone, is Time Warp at Canada's Wonderland and Superfly at Rye Playland. These are 2 of the 3 Zamperla Valera coasters on the continent, and they both kinda suck. For starters, it's a claustrophobic ride vehicle because you're trapped in these small metal cages. Honestly speaking, Zamperla literally couldn't have executed the flying coaster design more poorly. Then it's also a shaky coaster and will bang your head against these obnoxious head restraints. If they didn't have those restraints, these would honestly be more pleasant experiences, which leads me onto the number 7 spot. Soarin Eagle at Luna Park and Coney Island is the one and only Valera coaster without these arbitrary restraints. So while the ride is still quite shaky, and a weak excuse for a flying coaster design, you don't get any headbanging, which helps the ride quite a lot. I borderline enjoyed this one and would ride it again if I went back to the park. Taking a massive jump up to 6 is a ride that typically gets a lot of hate, but I actually got a real kick out of it. Nighthawk at Carowinds is a relocated Vekoma Flying Dutchman from California's Great America, but despite this, I'd argue that it's running quite smoothly nowadays. And again, I know this is really unpopular, but I got off this thing wondering where the hate comes from. Sure, it's not the most comfortable experience in the world, especially when you're on your back on the brakes and lift hill, but other than that, I found it to be a pleasant ride. The only reason it's not higher is A, competition, and B, it has these 2 corkscrews that feel really awkward and are the only parts of the ride I really would change. So taking the top 5 is Superman Ultimate Flight clones at Six Flags Great Adventure and Six Flags Great America. These are 2 of the 3 coasters of this layout, though they aren't in the most exciting environments. It's apparent that Six Flags chose to just kind of plop these down on grass fields, which is fine, but it doesn't hold a candle to the interactions that the top 4 have. Still, these do have some great moments of flying, and by far the best part of the ride, the pretzel loop. These crush riders with positive Gs and is really one of the craziest inversions you can find anywhere. The manufacturer Bolliger and Mabiart has really adopted the pretzel loop and has placed it on most of their flying coasters around the world. Now, most of what I said about these 2 rides can also apply to Superman Ultimate Flight at Six Flags Over Georgia. The only difference between them is that this was the original, and you can tell that the layout was meant for the park's terrain. This Superman has some low-to-the-ground interactions, making for some sketchy near-miss elements, plus a tunnel towards the end of the ride. It isn't a drastic change to the ride experience, but still something minor that I thought I'd mention. Taking the number 3 spot is a ride that often gets overlooked. This is Batwing at Six Flags America. For this one, think Nighthawk at Carowinds, but without the double corkscrew. Instead, this has a double inline twist, which makes much more sense for this style of ride, and a fun double helix before the brake run. Something that both rides share in common is the amazing vertical loops though. These start on your back, but then flip you upside down, creating heavy positive G-forces. In my opinion, this and Nighthawk aren't too far off in quality. The only reason there's 2 other flying coasters separating them is because all 4 of them share a close spot together in my overall rankings. That said, I don't think the top 2 is arguable, and it's kind of a by far kind of thing, starting with Manta at SeaWorld Orlando. This is a great full package flying coaster. It's got some really nice theming, it looks visually impressive, and it rides like a flying coaster should. It's got the iconic pretzel loop that the Superman clones have, but then differentiate with 2 halves. The first have these sprawling inline twists high above the ground, and the second has some low-to-the-ground turns near rockwork and waterfalls. This ride works really well at SeaWorld Orlando and is a must-ride every time I go. But that still doesn't keep me away from ranking Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain the best flying coaster in North America. This one is noticeably larger than the others. Like, if you take into account the elevation of the park's terrain, I wouldn't be surprised if you were over 200 feet at some points. What's cool about this terrain is you don't have the signature pretzel loop until the end of the ride, and because it's so high off the ground, they made it the tallest of its kind in the world. Tatsu's pretzel loop stands 124 feet tall and is absolutely one of the most intense inversions ever devised. But it's not like that's all the ride has to offer either. It has some fairly intense turns that pin you against your seat and several graceful inversions. Really, it's the variety that this coaster packs in that might really throw you off guard, but that's one of the things I love about Tatsu. I always appreciate when a flying coaster does something a bit different, and although the B&M flyers over in Asia take it to another level, I'd like to believe that Tatsu is pretty good itself. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to give me a like and subscribe if you wish to see more content like this. Also, if you're into Discord, check out the Discord server that I have in the description below. And with that being said, thank you all so much, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.